Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. Despite a total lack of evidence, lawmakers and the press continue to suggest that Donald Trump's presidential campaign was somehow co-opted by the government of Vladimir Putin. In lieu of actual proof, those pushing this theory have relied on innuendos, spinning every random meeting between a Russian and a Trump associate as evidence of a grand conspiracy. Well, that approach took a hit of some sort on Sunday when a spokesman for Vladimir Putin's government claimed that Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign also met with the Russian government multiple times.
Well, if you look at some people connected with Hillary Clinton during her campaign, you would probably see that he had lots of meetings of that kind. But there were no meetings about electoral process. There was in no way it should be perceived as interference in electoral process. There are lots of specialists in politology, people working in think tanks, advising Hillary or advising people working for Hillary.
Well, former Clinton campaign spokesman Nick Merrill has denied this, sort of, saying, quote, "It's not true, which is why they're using the word probably, is my guess." Still looks like another media narrative could be in big trouble. What is going on here exactly? Joining us tonight to explain it is the great Bob Beckel, co-host of The Five. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Chuck. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, but
Good.
Confused. So night after night we talk about Russia. It seems to, if you were to ask me, put together a dossier and what's gone wrong in the Trump administration, it would be possible to do that. Russia would not be on the list.
No,
what is this about, really?
Well, first of all, we got to keep in mind here that I haven't been involved in 3 presidential campaigns and running one of them. You're going to get people who are going to come representing campaigns or presumably representing campaigns.
Right.
And they come in and say, well, I'm with so-and-so, and I want to talk to you about your foreign policy guy or whatever. It's not unusual, first of all. And secondly, unless they're doing business on behalf of the United States government, which they're not doing. In Trump's case, I think, though, that there is some issue of intercepts that may actually prove to be evidence. But in Clinton's case, first of all, who cares now, right? But secondly, there's enough of the Russian connection with Trump that you can draw a pretty, easy, unevidenced narrative about it. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, the intelligence community say that they have information that has Trump campaign people talking to the Russians. Now,
right.
Again, I still don't see that, but I don't, frankly, myself don't find that a problem. But I suppose if you put it in the whole scheme of things, it sounds like a problem.
Well, I'm trying to understand this because, people all across Washington on the other cable channels going wall to wall with the Russia connection and the theory. So here's what we know. At the very beginning, from the U.S. intel community, their report says that the Russians tried to break into various email accounts, Republican and especially the Democratic side, starting in March of 2015. That was before Trump announced. It was before anybody took him seriously. Is the claim that the Russians somehow knew that he was going to run, get the Republican nomination, and then be elected president?
I mean, it's the whole thing is just, first of all, it's amateur hour all the way around. And people who don't understand the game of presidential politics don't seem to understand that every presidential candidate has 1,000 representatives, whether they're on the payroll or not. And first of all, it would be, I think, frankly, a little bit of a problem if you didn't try to make some contact with major foreign powers around the world when you're running for president of the United States. I mean, that's not unusual. Everybody goes to Israel, for example, right?
Right.
So I don't, lacking evidence here. Now, I'm not easy on Trump. I'm pretty tough on him, but the one thing I know is not true is the Barack Obama taping his phones. But on the Russian thing,
that's a separate question.
Yeah, it's a separate question. But on the Russian thing, there's so many pieces of this Russian thing. You go back even before that, the issue about whether the Trump organization, the business organization, was involved with Russian banks and oligarchs in business. I don't know. And if they were, so what? I mean, that's their business.
Right. I mean, well, sure. And lots of people are involved in business with Russia or its satellite states, including Hillary campaign manager's brother, who's one of the biggest lobbyists in town. What does it add up to? But here's what my concern is. Obviously, the point of this is to delegitimize the election results and the Trump campaign. But more than that, Russia's a real country, and there are geopolitical consequences of this. You just had a Democratic Senator, Jeanne Shaheen of New Hampshire, describe what Russia did, and I'm quoting, as an act of war. Now, what does an act of war require? Well, an appropriate response, war. And so it seems like that's where we're moving, toward conflict with Russia. Why? To delegitimize Trump? It seems insane and reckless to me.
Yeah, well, it is. You know, whenever you get people in politics who don't understand foreign policy and don't understand geopolitics begin to talk about it in a political context, they're out of their league, and it leaves behind a trail of things. If you want to pick it up and you want to run with it, sure, you can run with it. But the problem here is there's only one issue, and on one issue only. I assume the intelligence committees are looking into this, and that is, was there anything from Russia having to do with suppression of votes or getting into campaign computers, that sort of thing? We knew all this, that the Russians have had conversations and dealt with WikiLeaks, but outside of that, I can't, as a Democrat and a liberal, I couldn't nowhere stand up here and say Trump and his organization were involved with Russia, because I just don't know, and I don't think anybody's talking about it knows.
Is this familiar, though, this pattern? I mean, you wrote an entire book about people's lives blowing up and then rebuilding their lives. A good book, by the way. But in that, you make the point that you have to come to terms with what went wrong before you can rebuild. And I wonder if all of this isn't, in addition to being a political exercise, kind of a psychological symptom of a party not willing to face what actually happened.
Well, you know, that's going in your mind, which is always wide and brilliant. You could probably reach out to that, but I don't give people enough. I mean, I don't think of anybody in my party who has that kind of depth, who could figure something like that out. I mean, Hillary Clinton clearly is somebody that has a lot of thinking to do about what happened. And if you look now, you look back on that campaign, I've been through all the polls now and looked at it, and clearly, for the first time, the Democrats forgot about rural America, and they were voting huge numbers. So, but we know that. So the question is, what's behind all this? And it seems to be a little bit of a reach to say that you're going to rebuild yourself by stepping on Trump and the Russians. There's probably a faster lane to get there.
Well, that does seem that way. I mean, I keep thinking, is there a single voter who voted for Trump or sat out this election who's watching this Russia story and thinking, oh, wow, Vladimir Putin hacked the election, whatever that means, I'm voting Democrat next time? Wouldn't it be more fruitful to think through, why didn't people who had voted Democrat for generations vote Democrat this election? That's
what, you know, there's always something about presidential campaigns, and I've been guilty of this in the past, and that is you want to justify what you've done if you lose. You know, somehow it wasn't just us, it wasn't our strategy, it wasn't our candidate, but there were forces out there that we couldn't deal with. Now, you know, in some cases that's true. I mean, the economy and other things. But when you start putting together an international intrigue, you know, worthy of a bad foreign policy book, then I think you're reaching just too far. Because I don't think the average voter would make that connection anyway. I mean, did anybody say that they got a call from the Russians? I mean, I did go out to vote.
It doesn't make any sense. And for the new Cold War to be started by Democrats is so bewildering for those of us over 40. But do donors play a role in this? I mean, people spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this campaign, and they want to know what happened to their money. Is this an easy way to explain it to them?
Yeah, I think there's something about that which is quite true. I mean, I know I did that myself when I dealt with our donors, and you know, you always put the rosiest side on it you possibly can, but you know, so these guys are getting smarter and smarter now, and women, and they understand what goes wrong with the campaign. And this one, you know, the real problem for Clinton, if you think about it, is it was a well-run, on-target campaign up until election night.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, you begin to look and find the holes in it. And in Trump's case, it was a badly run, badly messaged campaign that happened to be the right message at the right time.
Exactly.
So I think all these exercises, every day you get away from the election, it becomes less and less important in the scheme of things. So I mean, Hillary Clinton, the real question for the Democrats is, who will you have on your bench to run the next time?
Exactly.
You know, and right now, I don't know who that is. For the Republicans, by the way, if Trump gets through 4 years, which I'm not sure he will, but if he does, he's going to have primaries against him, and that's going to. That's not. You used to be. You and I both know you were in line to get this. The next person in line to get the presidency.
Yeah, no.
And no more.
No more. The market is open always.
Yes, sir. And I think draft you right now, buddy.
Happy where I am. Good to see you tonight, though. Thank you for that.
You too, Tuck.